One of Leta's earliest childhood memories was the bombing of Pearl Harbor. She and her family came in from church that Sunday and heard the news on the radio. Thinking the United States mainland was about to be bombed, Leta's dad rushed his family into the storm cellar. They remained in the cellar over 3 hours, waiting, uncertain of their future. Leta, a 4-year-old child at the time, emerged from that dark cellar with this understanding: life is a precious gift. Leta's dad taught the family that they were a team. He told them that they all had a job to do and that no one on the team was more important than the other. That concept of team was something that Leta never forgot. She grew up in rural Texas and dreamed of becoming a singer, but her dad had other ideas. She learned to shoot a basketball through a hoop mounted in a chicken pen. She became an all-state basketball player, and many years later, she became an unparalleled high school basketball coach. Hi, I'm Bill Walton, and this is the story of an amazing lady, Leta Andrews. Leta was a close friend of John Wooden, my college coach at UCLA. Through her years in Texas, she became quite the coaching legend. Her story is unique, but if you were to ask her about it, she would tell you it's all in the game.
Sometimes you laugh, sometimes you cry. Often you wonder, why do I try? But then you realize one more time, it's all in the game. You keep 'em rolling, always pushing, make them better every day. And when the team...
As a little girl, the word team was always used around our family. When I started coaching, we emphasized team. When I ended my career, it was still team, and the young ladies knew that. When I played, my sister Shirley and I, it wasn't about the two of us. No person was more important than the other person on the team. And that's what made us go. That's what made us function. That's what made us taste the fruits of victories.
I think one of the things that stands out is how successful her teams are, and there were very few what you would label as stars on her teams. She took players who collectively were very successful, which is to me a strong testament about her coaching ability.
But it wasn't about Leta. It was always about the girls and having them do their best, put their best out there on the court. Life lessons, because she'd tell them life isn't easy, and this is a good lesson for you. You've got to know, you've got to fight, you've got to come back, and you've got to be ready, and you've got to be prepared.
I'm a driver. I expect the best, and my expectations are very, very high, and I want my young ladies, when they step out to compete, whether it be on the basketball floor or in the self-contained classroom, I want them doing their very best. Don't let it fall. Do it well. If it's worth doing, we got to do it right. Up. Oh, I know already.
Leta is old school, period. Vince Lombardi's statement when he said, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. That's the way Leta approaches things. The idea of losing is just, it's not in the playbook. This fair share and fair everything that's going on today does not apply to her.
Coach Andrews never got tired of winning. Every game was a new game, and it was a game to win, and she came to win.
That's the reason you play, is to win. I don't have a lot of room in my makeup, in my everyday program for losing, because it's not okay to lose. As my basketball girls and my former basketball players would tell you, I hate losing. Now, I will say you may stump your toe, but you can rebound and come back and be successful the next outing.
Leta's story begins in Granbury, Texas, a small town about 40 miles southwest of Fort Worth. The second of 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, Leta Mae Raines was born in 1937. Her sister, Shirley Ann, a year older, would become her best friend and teammate for years to come. A brother, Walt, followed a year after Leta was born. The youngest sibling, George, would not come onto the scene for another 12 years. Leta's parents, Clyde and Alba Raines, came from a long line of West Texas farmers and ranchers. Both of her parents dropped out of school in the 8th grade to help their parents on the farm.
My daddy was probably the toughest person I've ever known in my life. His daddy was a hard-working man. His mother was sweet as pie and was just so genuine to all the children of the family. My granddaddy, Daddy's daddy, was an alcoholic, and they were in the process of getting him dried out and cleaned up and everything, and he got off of his medication and he shot grandmother and killed himself.
Leta's dad never did talk much about what happened to his parents. He kept it to himself. Leta often said her dad was made of steel and iron because he gutted it up, rolled up his sleeves, and went to work. No matter what, Clyde Raines expected his family to put in a full day on the farm. The day started at 4 a.m.
When we first started farming the place, we didn't have a lot. I walked behind a mule and a plow a lot, plowing, and then we bought our first tractor. From that point, we bought the second tractor and then the third tractor, and we all had tractors that we plowed. And not only did we have the property, but he leased probably about 1,500 acres that we farmed too.
From an early age, Leta knew she didn't want to be on the farm. She loved the wide open spaces, but farming was not the future she had in mind. She fancied herself as a singer, and she told her parents of these ambitions.
And I would sing to the cows, to the horses, to the pigs, or chickens, or whatever. And finally, Daddy thought I ought to put the singing on the back burner and pick up the basketball. I dribbled on the home place out on gravel, rocks, and it probably made me a tremendous great ball handler because it would bounce on a rock and I'd have to react to get it. And one day I asked Daddy to put us up a basketball backboard and a goal. Well, that rocked along a week or two, and we came home and he had mounted it in the chicken yard. But I tell the story that it made me a great rebounder because I never wanted it to hit the ground because you know what it would have landed in, some chicken poo-poo. So I always made I would go get it and catch it and shoot. I had a sister, we went through school together. She's a year older than I am, but Daddy held her out so we could go through school. She and I would play every day. We'd come home from school and get out in the graveled area and dribble that basketball and pass and shoot.
By high school, Leta thought she had died and gone to heaven to play on the girls' varsity team with her sister. Gone were her dreams to become a singer. Basketball was the only thing that mattered. It was her father's dream, and now she had made it her own.
When I played basketball at Granbury High School, my high school principal, Mr. Don Smith, was my basketball coach. Such a class man. And, you know, as we played the 6-player game, you had 3 forwards and 3 guards.
In 1953, the Granbury team didn't make it to state. Clyde Raines decided his daughters might need a little added incentive to play better, so he loaded up the family and drove to Austin. so the girls could see some state tournament basketball in Gregory Gym at the University of Texas. As Leta watched the state tournament games for the very first time, she saw a jump shot. She decided right then that she would practice that shot because she was coming back to Gregory Gym as a player. Her quest to play in a state tournament had begun. Despite her dreams of playing basketball at a high level, farm work was a reality that put food on the family table and could not be ignored.
One morning we were having breakfast and Daddy said, I want you to pull close to 50 pounds of cotton before you come home. Well, we had the biggest game in our district play that night. So we got out off the bus at the cotton patch that day and pulled so much cotton. And when my sister and I got to the gym, the ball game had already started. And we went down, put on our basketball suits. We were behind. We came out, and fortunately, we won the basketball game.
The following year, the Granbury girls made their way to the state finals. They played in Gregory Gym. Leta had perfected her jump shot, but she didn't get a chance to use it. The coach needed her to play guard on the 6-player team. Leta played her heart out, and so did her sister as a forward, but it was not to be. The team from Dimmitt, Texas beat Granbury in the 1954 finals.
I came as a young girl and watched that game and so admired how talented they were and the experience that they were having of getting to play at what I considered the highest level. So Leta was always in my mind as a role model. I remember Leta as being a very feisty player, super competitive.
As high school seniors in 1955, the girls returned to the state finals in a rematch with the girls from Dimmitt, Texas. It was a well-fought battle. Unfortunately, the state title eluded Granbury once again, and Leta and Shirley went home disappointed. Coach Smith later wrote in Leta's senior yearbook about her basketball performance. Dear Leta May, the only reason you want me to write in here is so I will brag on your basketball playing. Now, I'm going to tell you something about basketball that you didn't know. As far as the records go, you are the only girl to make the all-state team at guard and then make it the following year at forward. It's a good thing school is out, because I'm sure your head will swell now. Meanwhile, back at the high school, there was more going on than just basketball.
We dated 2 or 3 times toward the summer of late spring of our junior year. And I made my mind up then. There may be other girls, and she may have other boys, but that was a woman that I was going to marry.
Our junior and senior prom, we had it in Decker Gym where I'd played basketball, and we decorated the gym. Oh, it was like the Taj Mahal. I got to go buy a formal. I think we paid $29 for the dress I wore, and I thought I was the most beautiful person there to wear a dress. And David got me a corsage of gardenias, and I could smell those. I can still smell those gardenias today because my corsage went from the front of my dress over to the back of my dress, so I had plenty of gardenias around me, and knowing that it came from him, I felt like a queen, and it was really special. David was always a very good date. One day I met him in the hall, and he said, Leta, you want to go with me to see Elvis Presley Saturday night? And I said, who's Elvis? And we laughed about it later. And so when we went to Northside Coliseum in Fort Worth to see Elvis Presley, man, all these young ladies started screaming and hollering, and I got real nervous because I thought my daddy'd think this little girl of mine's gone crazy. She's over there watching Elvis and hooping and hollering around. And It was just amazing to me, and I went to Abilene and saw him in person again, and they were doing the same thing. And I thought, wow, then I understood it all. But that first trip, it was a shock to this little country girl because I'd never seen anything like that.
Leta and David dated through their senior year. Farm chores often interfered with their socializing. In the summertime, Leta and her family worked in the fields until dark. It wasn't unusual for David to be waiting on her when she came in at night, bonnet on her head, barefoot, and dirty from head to toe.
They really worked. It was a wake-up call to me. I didn't know people worked like that.
Not any one of us wanted to stay on the farm. Daddy didn't want us to. He wanted us to go and get an education, and we all did.
Following graduation, Leta went to Weatherford College and played basketball while David went to TCU in Fort Worth and played baseball. Being apart was something they both realized they couldn't stand. On February 3rd, 1956, David Andrews married Leta Mae Raines just a year after their high school graduation.
My wedding gift from my mother and daddy, it wasn't china, it wasn't cooking utensils or anything, sheets or anything. It was my college education paid for.
The pursuit of a college education, being a newlywed, something had to give for Leta. She couldn't have it all, and she couldn't do it all. No matter how hard she tried, sometimes life just gets in the way. And so at the end of her first semester in college, her basketball playing career ended.
It seems like probably that we had a baby before we could turn around, and then we didn't just have one, we had two.
Linda Sue Andrews was the first addition to the family. A year later, Sharon, nicknamed Sissy, was born. When Leta's final college semester rolled around, all she had to do was student teach in the elementary school classroom. But there was one tiny problem.
I had the first graders, and I thought after 6 weeks of that, I cannot do it. I said, David, I can't do this. I got to go do something else. And I went right back and got a degree plan in secondary education in English and kinesiology.
The year was 1962 when Leta started to work. Her first job? Teaching and coaching in Tolar, Texas, and she couldn't have been any happier. It was a perfect fit.
Girls basketball was in its infancy when Leta Andrews began to coach in the early 60s. And to be a woman and coaching in Texas was an anomaly. There just weren't many of them.
You know, I never envisioned myself as a coach because all of my coaches were men. One of the few women that I ultimately saw coaching was Leta Andrews, and I think that became an inspiration for me.
Mama always was very competitive, you know, being a woman in the era that she grew up in and excelling in anything in the 60s and the 70s was not easy in America, you know, so Mama was fighting not only just to do well at her job, but she was fighting the establishment the way it was.
Her first year record coaching at Tolar, 14 wins, 3 losses. It was at this rural school that Leta would begin a coaching career that would span 5 decades and bring her national recognition and prominence. It was something that a country girl who was raised in the toil and dirt of the Texas cotton fields never dreamed was possible. Leta realized early in her career that she had a lot to learn. It was one thing to be a basketball player, but it was another thing to be a basketball coach. So she talked to other coaches, including her husband and her old high school coach. She read books and went to conferences. She had to find a way to make the game her own. And as a woman, to be accepted in a man's coaching world, her way would have to be better.
A lot of people don't know about Leta. They just look at her as a successful basketball coach and a lot of wins.
From the very beginning of her coaching career, Leta developed a game style that focused on one thing:
If I had one person that I wanted to go to and talk about the fundamentals of shooting, it would be Leta Andrews.
Her kids are very, very fundamentally sound. When you try to expose one area that you think they might be weak at, that kid's always going to come up. Those fundamentals that they preach to them are always going to shine.
In my experience with Leta, the thing that impressed me most was her teams were always fundamentally sound, always well conditioned, and she always had a game plan. When she went into a game, she knew exactly what she had to do to compete.
You've got to teach them. You can't assume that the young ladies will learn them, and review those fundamentals frequently. That's probably one of my strong points as a coach, was the ability to work with fundamentals, and those young ladies grasp those fundamentals and take them into the contest, and they became successful.
After I came to work in Granbury ISD as the assistant superintendent, we were at a ball game, and Leta didn't have a statistician with her, so she came to the bleachers, called me out of the bleachers, and said, "I need someone to keep my scorebook." And that began something that ended when she retired.
Courtside, Leta maintained a competitive edge.
I've seen her get upset with the kids and have them running behind her bench until they felt like they could go in and hustle. And I've seen her get on officials numerous times, and I would probably say 85–90% of the time they get it right. But for a fan, and a lot of times for a coach, it's never right if it goes against you.
One of the advantages of sitting on the bench with Leta is you could hear all of the interactions she had with the officials. And if she thought that they had made a bad call, she would not hesitate to grab one by the arm and say, "You know, you missed that call." And one of the officials said one night, "You know, if you said I missed it, Leta, I probably did."
When David graduated from college in 1963, the couple moved to Gustine, another rural West Texas community. Both Leta and David got hired because they could teach and coach. Leta was promptly named girls basketball coach and track coach for the junior high and high school, all housed in one building.
In those days, we got coaches that didn't really want to be coaching girls basketball. They coached us because they had to, and that was their assignment. We really didn't have a designated girls basketball coach until we got Coach Andrews. Leta would get on me, and I thought, man, am I ever going to do anything right? And she said, "Cindy, I expect a lot out of you. And when I stop yelling at you, I've given up. So as long as I'm yelling, you're in good shape." From then on, I was okay, and I was like, I've got this.
I know that fundamentals is very important to Leta and her coaching style. Not very tolerant of people who don't work hard and who don't work to develop their skill.
I've always said, you either love Leta or you hate her. She's that challenge.
It's unbelievable the conditioning that they go through to get to the position to be able to go on the court and call themselves a Lady Pirate. There's blood, sweat, and tears.
You go up to this thing, don't offer it to the crowd. Keep those hips between them. And we've all got good hips. Come on, back it up and go. All right, come on. Let's go. Get that head up.
The practices were hard. They were really, really hard, and I had some foot problems, and so after every practice and after every game, I would have to ice my feet. And the manager would go and get 2 large buckets of ice and water, and I would be so exhausted that I would stick my feet in the buckets and leave them there. And it was just a way for me to be able to relax a little bit, because we just gave it everything we could possibly give. She was really an amazing person and just an amazing coach.
My freshman year, we go to the playoffs. I hit the winning shot. The next day, we were having a great practice. And all of a sudden, I'm like, yeah, high five. I said, bring on the next opponent. She blows the whistle. I need you to stay focused and take it day by day, practice by practice. You might have been the superstar last night, Mandy, but you can be the scapegoat today or tomorrow.
You could be assured that when you played Leta's team, they were always going to be very fiercely competitive and well coached and in great physical condition.
Get over there and give me a wind sprint. I said get around the rim. Give me a wind sprint. Y'all keep going. I asked her to get around the rim and she shoots out at the elbow.
Those girls today, and even, after they graduated, oh man, they look back on it too, did I do that?
Mother knows how to teach first and foremost, and then she knows how to apply it on the basketball court. But she taught shooting, she taught dribbling. She just doesn't throw a ball out there and say, okay, run and gun.
You really feel her expectations for you and her hopes for you, not in a negative sort of way, but in an encouraging sort of way that makes you want to go out and work harder and get better.
And anytime a coach wins a lot of games, there's a reason for that. It's not just good players, because you don't have good players every year.
Think of the number of practices that she conducted, the number of hours that she spent planning those practices. Now, you talk about a pioneer. No woman ever in the history of the game has spent more time than Leta Andrews has done in preparing her teams to play.
In 2 years at Gustine, Leta's teams produced some tournament wins and a noticeably better girls basketball program. She had built a record of 34-16 and was gradually becoming an even better coach. Soon, an opportunity came for David and Leta to accept teaching and coaching positions just up the road in the larger town of Comanche. They made the move in 1965. But now, there were other considerations. Those two little girls of theirs were school age and bouncing basketballs every chance they got. And then, something else happened too that slowed things down a bit.
We decided, with a little maturity, and we were a little older, that we were going to have that boy.
And they named that new baby boy Lisa. And so it would be 3 little girls for the Andrews family, carbon copies of their mama. Well, Linda and Sissy started playing ball for their mama at Comanche Junior High, and together they packed quite a wallop.
She was very hard on us, but at the same time, she was very fair. She's always been fair to all of her kids. The thing about it is, Mama was always the coach. Well, Daddy was always the mediator. So it didn't matter how we played in a game. It didn't matter how we did. We'd be in the bed at night, and Dad would always come in there and go, "You girls did a good job." No matter if we stunk it up that night,
Mom, she was tough. She knew what it took to produce a winner, and she's going to do it. And she wanted the most from her daughters. She wanted her daughters to set the example, and so she pushed us. She pushed us hard.
We were playing Stephenville. Back then, this was in junior high, and we all dressed in the same dressing room. Well, we beat Stephenville. Some of our girls and the Stephenville girls kind of got into it, saying, we're better than you are, all this kind of stuff. Well, I guess it got back to Mama the next day, and she brought all us girls in the locker room and said, okay, we are not going to have any of that. We are going to be ladies, blah, blah, blah. This was her mantra, we're going to be ladies no matter what we do. And she goes, I'm giving every one of you girls licks because y'all were fighting after the game last night. And she goes, and Linda Sue, you're first, like that. And I didn't even know what had happened. So anyway, she gave one lick to every person on the team that day. But needless to say, we didn't get any fights anymore after the game.
Leta's coaching career hit its stride at Comanche High School. Her teams amassed some 292 wins while she was there. Comanche went to state tournaments in Austin all 4 years that Sissy was in school, playing twice for the 2A state championship in both 1973 and 74. And Linda played in 3 of those state tournaments and in both title games. Both girls later played basketball at the University of Texas.
She coached every level where we went to school. She was the 7th grade coach, the 8th grade coach, JV coach, 9th grade coach. She was the janitor. She pushed the broom. She had to get the concession stand set up, get everything in the concession stand. People now have no idea of what she used to do and raised a family.
She's got a great support system. Her husband is phenomenal. That guy's at everything they do. You always see him in that cowboy hat. And she couldn't do what she does if it wasn't for him and his support.
For over 50 years, Leta and David shared similar career paths. David worked as a principal, teacher, and coach at many of the same schools where Leta taught and coached. The two faithfully supported each other, and when it came time to Leta's game days, David did whatever needed to be done to facilitate her coaching efforts. This included driving the school bus to most away games, but sometimes things didn't always go as planned, especially where Leta was concerned.
One time, Miss Andrews driving, she's driving like this on the school bus, and then she slams on the brake. And we're like, what is going on, We thought we were about to hit a car, and she's like, there was a ladybug crossing the street. We were like, oh my goodness, get Miss Andrews back and drive this bus. She's just a random person. So randomly, she would come in with the wig on and wearing some high heel shoes and the boa. She'd have like a little boa and dress crazy. But
anytime you started talking about basketball, she would narrow in and she would be so focused. And those piercing blue eyes, wow, you knew it was time to go to work.
We were at the Mineral Wells game. She said, I promise you, Mandy, you let somebody take the ball from you again, you're going to sit on the bench, and I have a baby bottle, and I'm going to let you suck on that baby bottle. After that Mineral Wells game, I see in one of her bags, the manager is carrying a bag, and it has a baby bottle in it. And I said, she was serious. She has a baby bottle. So I got that baby bottle. I said, I want to see what's in it. And I took a swig of it. It was soap water.
If there were certain skills that were lacking, she always encouraged us to find time on our own to shoot 100 free throws a day.
Well, I don't know what she does discipline-wise if they miss one, but they're not going to miss. They're very solid at the free throw line.
All close ball games are won or lost at the free throw line. I would say in the last 2 minutes of a contest, 40% of the shots are made from the free throw line. So you've got to make free throws. And I have a rule, before we start conference play, they're allowed to have 15 turnovers. I don't gripe at them, or I don't complain. But in district, we move it down. We move it to 12. That's all you're permitted to have. Now, if they break that record, there's consequences.
You had to run also for your missed free throws for previous games. She would line us up after the game, and people are still filing out of the gymnasium and everything, and we were sitting there running after a game. So fundamentals and conditioning is what I would say that Coach Andrews is all about.
When I first started coaching, I did all of women's athletics. Junior high, high school. It was amazing how I ever did as many games in 1 week as I did. David said it was 24. I thought it was 22. But anyway, it was a lot of ball games. But we all loved it. People would be shocked to know what my first take-home month's pay was. And I didn't complain, because it was a job.
While Leta was coaching in Comanche, Congress passed legislation called Title IX in the Education Amendments of 1972. Up until that time, Leta did not have the benefits of that legislation. She simply forged ahead on her own merit. In 1980, 8 years after Title IX was passed, Leta got her first assistant coach.
It's a little discouraging to think that we had to have a federal law to give women opportunities to dream their dreams and to realize those dreams. But certainly things changed dramatically at that benchmark.
The 70s brought change, first with Title IX, and then with something that affected the rules of the game directly. In 1978, Texas plunged in and became the first state to implement the 5-player full-court game for girls. It was quite an adjustment for all and would require Leta and every other coach to revamp everything.
I went all over the state of Texas fighting it because I thought we had a great game, the 6-player game, different from the boys program. And too, not everybody can shoot a basketball, but everybody can play defense. I fought to keep that program, but I lost.
At the time the ruling came down, Leta had been coaching in her hometown of Granbury for 2 years. The state finals of 1978 marked the end of the 6-player girls game, and Leta's Lady Pirates played their way into the state tournament that year. Their season ended with a loss in the 2A championship game to Slayton. It was the only time that Granbury played in the state championship since the 1950s, when Leta and her sister Shirley competed in back-to-back title games. Throughout her career, Leta remained a student of the game and would acquaint herself with and learn from some of the nation's best coaches. It was at one of the conferences Leta attended that she met her future mentor, who would later also become her lifelong friend. That man was John Wooden, who built one of the most storied basketball programs the game has ever witnessed. Wooden's legendary UCLA teams captured 10 national championships and during one span had an incredible 88 consecutive wins.
In 1993, I was selected the Walt Disney Teacher of the Year. He was selected as the Honorary Teacher of the Year. And we spent a week together, and I learned more basketball in that week because every free moment we had, we were talking basketball, and he'd get out a pencil and draw me off some things that he had used in his success. And then I took them to our program, and they were successful for us also.
Leta also watched the successes of Jody Conrad at the University of Texas and Pat Summitt, who coached at the University of Tennessee. They too became personal friends and mentors of the game.
Jody Conrad, Pat Summitt started elevating women's basketball. Those people forced you to turn your head and watch what they were doing and listen to them.
The year was 1980 when Leta got the call from Corpus Christi Cal Allen High School. She'd had a good run at Granbury for 4 years with 108 wins and a state finals appearance. But the bid to move from the familiar to a larger school presented a daunting challenge. Cal Allen High School would also mark the first time that Leta would be coaching in a suburban school district. Her team? The Cal Allen Wildcats. The 12 seasons that followed would prove to be some of the most prolific in Texas girls' high school basketball history.
I got my first assistant at Corpus Christi Cal Allen, Mary Lee Stockton. She was a lot like me. We wanted to win.
Cal Allen High School, there was quite a basketball dynasty there. Leta had been there for a number of years, so by the time I filtered up to the high school level, it was already pretty established. The talent was so deep and vast.
Daughter Lisa was a part of those vintage Wildcat teams.
Points were never an issue. In fact, I can't even tell you a high point game that I scored or tell you the score of a single game. We won by 10, we won by 15. I played point guard. I'm one of those people that I don't want others to be disappointed in me. My family and anyone else will tell you that I'm bossy, so that lended easily to the point guard role, and it came easy for me to be that kind of leader on the court. I will say that my junior and senior year, I had some teammates that were very capable, and I was very comfortable with the ball in their hands, and I knew good things were going to happen.
Despite enormous success, the state championship eluded Cal Allen quite a number of times. The Wildcats found Level End, Texas to be a regular nemesis in those games. In 1987, during their fourth attempt at the state title in 5 years, Leta Andrews played her final game. Cal Allen lost, and defeat was not easy to accept. Leta's parents attended that game in Austin. Her father must have sensed his daughter's frustration after the loss, and so he sat down and penned the only letter Leta ever received from him in his lifetime.
And it was the sweetest thing. He was sorry that we didn't win the contest, but he was proud of me because he knew I was a fine young lady that lived a Christian life, and he said, "You made me very proud."
In 1987, the rules of the game changed yet again.
And then here comes the three-point shot. Now you talk about changing basketball. Wow, that changed basketball, because 3 points, you can't trade 2 for 3s and you never catch up. So it changed the defense. You had to play stronger man-to-man defense because they would wear you out, and it became a pure shot for a lot of young ladies.
The 1990 Cal Allen Wildcats once again barreled their way to the Texas State playoffs in Austin. And this time around, it was different.
One of my most vivid memories, I was her water girl when I was little. These were the years in Corpus Christi, Cal Allen, when she was going to the state tournament every year. I couldn't see when I was that young. We hadn't realized yet that I needed glasses. And so I remember when she won the state tournament, I was on the bench. All of a sudden, all of her players just got up and ran, and they were all gone all of a sudden, and I didn't know why, because I couldn't see the scoreboard. I didn't know that the game was over. Obviously something big had happened, and I remember one of her players came over and got me and said, we won, we finally won.
In that memorable title run, Cal Allen first defeated Dallas Lincoln in overtime in the semifinal. In the championship game, a record crowd of almost 9,000 gathered at the Frank Irwin Center at the University of Texas to witness a great contest. And that afternoon, Leta Andrews watched her Cal Allen Wildcats play tight defense, hit 59% of their shots, handle the full court press, and hold the scoring power of the second-ranked Waco Midway Panthers in check to win the 1990 Texas 4A girls state basketball title.
For as much success and attention that she garnered from the community and, our little small town press, it wasn't always support from every direction. Women's sports were not automatically put at the forefront of priority. She took a lot of flack, really.
There's a price to be paid for success. Sometimes rivalries and jealousies can arise from within a community. Not everyone celebrated the success of the Lady Wildcats.
I think it was just a constant battle for her, and she won. So, that makes me appreciate even more what she was able to accomplish.
Even though we had a few that could not handle the success that we were enjoying, they had to deal with that. Not me or any of the basketball girls, because I want you to know my young ladies had worked hard to win that title. I never could understand why one would begrudge one from tasting the fruits of success. And so we bounced back to Corpus Christi just in big smiles and happy, happy, happy.
The 1990 Lady Wildcats rolled to an almost perfect 39-1 record that season and was likely the pearl from among many talented teams that Leta brought forth at Corpus Christi Cal Allen. Overall, her teams blazed a trail that included 401 wins and 9 state tournament appearances from 1980 to 1992.
she proved to the country that the best of the best could be a female. And then she never wore that like on her sleeve. She never had any ill feeling. She just believed that she belonged. She made players understand you can do more than you think you can, and you can do more in life than you think you can too.
In 1992, Leta received a call to interview for the Granbury coaching position. And just as she did with her players, Leta shot real straight with them at the decisive point of the meeting.
In the process of our interview, one of the board members asked me if I had 10 girls on my basketball program, would they all play equally? And I stood up in the meeting and I apologized to the board members and to the superintendent of schools for taking up their time, because I'm not the person you need for this job. And I said the fact that if you're going to put a money box at the door and turn the scoreboard on, I'm going to play to win.
Leta's answer left little to be added, and the Granbury School Board voted unanimously to extend an offer to hire her. After some thought, she accepted. It was hard to leave Cal Allen, but moving back to Granbury gave Leta and David the family advantage they wanted. More time for aging parents, their children, and now grandchildren. And there was a certain comfort level in coaching at the school where she once played. At the age of 60, during the 1997-98 school year, Leta coached her girls in a game against Waco Midway, and the stakes were extremely high.
I was in Waco at college, so I took about 7 or 8. I took my teammates. The Baylor Bears came to watch her get her 1,000th win.
Momentarily feeds it out to Sarah for the nice jumper.
What an accomplishment. I thought then that was something to celebrate about, 1,000 wins in a career. And we beat Waco Midway.
Some folks thought she might retire with that 1,000th win, but Leta wasn't quite ready to take a back seat. Then something happened in 1998 that really got her attention and almost changed her plans forever.
We would walk here on the county road 4 or 5 miles, 2 or 3 days a week. That hill there behind you, we were going down it one day. She was breathing hard, and she says, I can't get my breath, I got to sit down. I said, Leta, there's something wrong with you.
The next day, Leta and David reported to the doctor's office for an examination, and it didn't take him long to assess things.
The doctor came in to visit with both of us, and he says, her feet aren't going to hit the ground.
I said, no, I don't have time. I've got a girl playing in an all-star game tomorrow night and I have to go.
Now, who do you suppose won that toss-up?
So they went in and put in 2 stents, and one was completely closed and the other one was 98%. And from the moment they put them in, I thought, oh my, I was a new person. So I'm very, very grateful.
In 2005, Granbury played 2004 5A state finals contender San Antonio Taft. The Lady Pirates won that game, and Leta Andrews became the winningest girls high school coach in the nation with 1,218 victories. Robert Hughes of Fort Worth Dunbar High School, who held the winningest high school basketball coach title at the time, presented Leta with a plaque for this historic win.
I'll never forget when she won 12-18. Robert Hughes was there, and that made her 116 games from tying him. And of course, after the game, when the presentations were being made, Mr. Hughes got up and spoke, and she turned to Mr. Hughes and says, "I'm coming after you."
Beginning in the early 1990s, Granbury posted numerous district titles and made repeated trips to the regionals. The Lady Pirates had a number of good teams in those playoff seasons and chalked up well over 500 wins during Leta's second tenure at Granbury.
Well, you know, we haven't been shooting our threes very well for the last 5 or 6 games. It looked like we're going to come back out.
The year is 2010. It's December and near the end of the semester. Granbury played Denton Geyer High School and beat them. That game put Leta at 1,333 wins, tying her with Fort Worth Dunbar legend Robert Hughes for the winningest high school basketball coach of all time. Moving ahead of Coach Hughes was a spectacle in itself. The resulting media attention threw the Lady Pirates for a loop for a few games.
I remember that tournament very well. We only had 6 games left, but yet every game felt so long. It kept people on the edge of their seats.
When we got close and we could not push it over the hill, and we'd get beat by 1 point, we'd get beat in overtime. There was so much pressure on my young ladies.
We just seemed like we couldn't get over the hump. We found a new way to lose a game every night. We had media here. They were following Leta around. They were interrupted. She just wanted to get them gone so she could coach.
I guess when we did come home for that Midlothian game, it was like it was supposed to happen that way.
Gigantic crowd, no seats in the house.
When we set the record on December the 7th, 2010, it was Pearl Harbor Day.
The whole team was ready. We all just knew what we were supposed to do. We were supposed to pick her up and celebrate. And the first thing she said was, "Girls, now watch out. I've got a skirt on. I don't want everyone seeing everything."
It was history. It was American history to watch her win 1,334 games.
To this day, I would treasure had Mother and Daddy been sitting in the bleachers watching when I became the winningest high school basketball coach in the nation, because they were just proud of their children, and I think they would be so overwhelmed with what I accomplished in my coaching career. But I do know they're up in heaven smiling down on me.
When discussing retirement, Leta often remarked that she wouldn't think about retirement. It would just happen. And so it did. On Saturday, February 15th, 2014, Leta announced her retirement at a playoff game. It was time. Leta Andrews coached for 52 years at 6 different schools. With 1,416 career victories, she retired as the winningest coach in high school basketball history.
Leta Andrews left the ladder down for all of us who were passionate about sports, who wanted to have a career. She epitomized what I wanted to be.
Legend. Because that's what she is.
In each of her 52 seasons, Leta Andrews held her teams accountable to the highest ethical standards, fueled by intelligent work habits and a burning desire to win. She was a pioneer who saw the passing of Title IX, who witnessed the transition from the girls' 6-player game to the 5-player full-court game, as well as the addition of the 3-point shot. She consistently devoted time and energy into practicing and preparing her teams to perform at unprecedented levels. She retired as the winningest high school coach of all time. I'm Bill Walton. Thank you. And thank you, Coach Leta, for making our world a better place. And never forget, it's all in the game.
Sometimes you laugh, sometimes you cry. Often you wonder, why do I try? But then you realize, one more time, it's all in the game. You keep 'em rolling, always pushing to make 'em better every day. And when the team comes together, it's all in the game. Dreams can come true, it's all up to you. When all is said and done, you try and you try to keep your faith alive until your a chance, forget the past, work hard and make it last, earn the path to fame, it's all in the game. Earn the path to fame, it's all